Senator Seselja. Senator Seselja.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Communications, Senator Fifield. Can the Minister inform the Senate of the biggest impediment to broadband availability in Australia?
The Minister representing the Minister for Communications, Senator Fifield.
Thank you, Mr President, and thank you to Senator Seselja for his long-standing interest in broadband. Mr President, there is a clear impediment to broadband availability in Australia.
Senator Fifield, just resume your seat. Order on both sides. Senator Fifield.
Thank you, Mr President. The Australian Labor Party have been the biggest impediment to broadband availability in Australia. They spent 6 years talking up to supposed reforms, but for all their rhetoric, they have failed to deliver. With the Australian Labor Party, we know once you issue the press release, you can forget about delivery. Issuing the press release is the focus. They think the job is done. Mr President, the strategic review confirms that the project was going to cost $29 billion more than Senator Conroy ever admitted and would have taken until 2024 to complete. Now, we have a situation where we have 1.5 million Australians who have no or inadequate broadband services, and that number barely changed during the period of the former government. In fact, it would be fair to say that never before has so much been spent on so little for so few. Mr President, the Coalition will prioritise those areas which need upgrades the most. We've seen time and again the results of governing by press release, but I think it's important to listen to the words of Mr Quigley, the former Chief Executive of NBN, who said, and I quote, if there are things he would have done differently, "You do think, should I have been more conservative? But the timescales are already set for you. The timeframes are already put out there for you. So there's not much that you can do. We are not going to require the hard-working staff of the NBN to defend the indefensible any longer."
Senator Seselja.
Thank you.
Order. Senator Seselja is entitled to be heard in silence.
Thank you, Mr President. Can the Minister inform the Senate of the importance of affordability when it comes to broadband uptake?
Thank you again, Senator Seselja.
Wait a minute, the Minister. Minister? You've got the call, Minister.
Mr President, affordability is a key determinant of access, and it's Australians on low income who often miss out when it comes to accessing the internet, for instance. Over the last decade, broadband prices have consistently fallen, meaning that more and more Australians, and particularly those from low socio-economic groups, could afford the take-up of broadband service. The price of ADSL fell 69% from 2005 to 2010. In contrast, the NBN had asked regulators for the right to lift prices on most services over the next 5 years. And the strategic review confirms that Senator Conroy's approach would have resulted in prices rising up to 80%. Now, obviously, this approach would have limited availability for price-conscious consumers. Mr President, the Coalition will ensure that broadband remains as affordable as possible for Australian families.
Order. Senator Seselja.
Thank you, Mr President. Can the Minister advise the Senate what would be the consequences in terms of take-up and affordability if the government fails to significantly reform the rollout plans it inherited?
Thank you again.
The Minister.
Thank you again, Senator Seselja. Well, it's pretty straightforward. If you barely roll out the network and ensure prices skyrocket, you're not going to have a lot of customers. Every target set by the previous government was missed, and that was because their targets were political. They were not operational. The good news, though, Mr President, is that NBN Co has advised the government that to deliver broadband sooner, at less cost to the taxpayers and more affordably for consumers, the NBN should be completed using a multi-technology mix. Now, this will match the right technology to the right location and make use of existing networks where possible to deliver very fast broadband. And the great news, Mr President, and I know you will appreciate this, is that this approach will save taxpayers $32 billion. and get the NBN finished 4 years sooner and ensure prices for consumers are lower than they would have been under Labor. The strategic review demonstrates just how far off track Labor was.
Order. Time.